is October. It's October the 6th, 2024. I'm going to be a host tonight. I'm Dana Durnford. Hope you're doing well on this Sunday night. The day before Almanac takes over our planet. You can call into these shows at 709-589-4406. And we got low audio, Dana. We do this again. It's October the 6th, 2024. We'll get there. Slow night for Dana. I'm a bit slow. You can consider donating. It'll be appreciated. You can donate PayPal in the bottom of the description or by credit cards. You can also do credit cards and bank cards at PayPal. You don't need an account. And so there's lots of ways to donate. There's a big list of ways to donate in the description. So we got a news cycle tonight. Hope everybody's doing well. We got a poll to get rid of. Here's our poll tonight. Is the Fukushima extinction level event why the world is descending into complete madness? I do believe it is. And if you watch these presentations, you're most likely going to consider what I'm saying. Israel and Iran. So tomorrow is a very important day for world's biggest pain in everybody's arse, Israel. And just before we get to that, this is Sellafield, England, and what you're looking at right there is the weapons production facility. And when you zoom back away from it, you see all these farms. And so they got nuclear reactors, they're plutonium producers, they can't contain it. So imagine eating food from any of these farms. It's quite staggering, the numbers of farms, isn't it? And it's not an accident. That's how they poison you. All nuclear power plants are hemorrhaging radiation, including Israel's. Threat of war looms large as Israel threatens to strike Iran's nuclear facilities. I think Iran got, don't quote me, but I think Iran got 5 nuclear reactors. So they estimated 200 missiles fired towards critical infrastructure of the Jewish state. Well, it was the Mossad headquarters. And it was their F-35 fighter jets, hangars and repair shops, maintenance shops, and airfields, and it was all military installations, unlike Israel. Israel just attacks the civilians. They don't attack the military because they got to have someone to fight, right? According to the reports, the targeted Israel response could be Iran's nuclear sites. There was a lot of stories about that. I apologize if I'm a few minutes late, maybe. I am a few minutes late. And I apologize to everybody. But these shows are really difficult to put together. And sometimes it takes me longer. It takes me longer than I would like. Israel is reportedly planning a vicious attack on the oil facilities and nuclear facilities. That means Iran will strike the Dimona and the other nuclear sites. And so this is 2014, I believe. 2014, July the 31st. And this was a Israeli sniper posted this up on his Facebook, Twitter account. And he said, I killed 13 Palestinian kids today. I killed, not wounded, which is bad enough, but I killed 13 Palestinian. That's their favorite number, is it? Do you know of any other instance where a soldier would post something like that? Have you ever heard tell of anything like that before? Israel. They got, I think, around 48 military bases on Israel's border for decades now, and they're carrying out electronic warfare. They're robbing people's cell phones of cash electronically. They got land, sea, and air embargoes. These military bases are nuclear, chemical, biological weapon sites too. And so if, of course, Iran, the military-industrial complex, United Kingdom, American, Australian, Canada, is going to participate with Israel in anything they're doing for some reason. A total betrayal of any common sense. And shame on the soldiers for participating in this. But all of these bases have chemical, nuclear, and biological weapons. And so tomorrow is a big day, right? Tomorrow's the anniversary, which was a special day in Israel anyway. And it's the anniversary of a major false flag that might turn out to be quite horrifying. The dangerous history behind Netanyahu's almanac rhetoric. His recent biblical reference has long been used by the Israeli far right to justify killing Palestinians. And you can see they like killing Palestinians. They wiped out all the schools, all the universities, the history of the school. And it's baked into the population from birth to hate everybody but Israelis, right? But particularly the Palestinians, Muslims. And these Israeli children are singing about the war in Gaza. This was put up in the major media websites and then was retracted shortly after when there was a lot of blowback. But they're singing about the war in Gaza. This is children. The children are so indoctrinated. It was created by the Israeli state-owned broadcaster and plays against the images of destruction in Gaza, which are just horrific. There is no Gaza anymore now. Within a year, we will eliminate them all, and then we will return to plow our fields. But, I mean, this is normal for the kids. And so they grew up with generational contempt for everything, particularly the Palestinians. And this is part of their Torah, their Talmud ideology, where the world will turn against Israel. And they're manifesting that. It's an artificial manifestation. Israel must stop using water as a weapon of war. They cut off all water, electricity, fuel right away. And if you've done this to the Israelis, can you imagine what the world media would be screaming? And the whole society, except for a very tiny fraction of it, has no sympathy whatsoever for the victims, particularly the children. They hate the children. It's not shocking to see Israeli children celebrate the Gaza genocide. And we've seen this long legacy of it. And so when you look at 2014, you killed 13 children a day and you're next, Muslims go to hell. So the soldiers are not trying to get Hamas. They're not looking for the military, they're shooting children. And they got no problems with that. They're not ashamed of that. Zelensky says the shell supply to Ukraine slowed by Israel-Hamas war. It's not a war. Israel got a navy. They got jet fighters, Apache helicopters. They got 4,000 plus tanks, 10,000 artillery. The big guns that are not that you just drag there behind your trucks and just lob these incredible big shells. And they used 155 millimeter. And 155 millimeter, for anybody in the business, they know what this is. This is the DOLRAM, depleted uranium low-level radioactive material that causes incredible birth defects in all the species, not just humans. Truly a crime against humanity. They were using it. The British sent an absurd amount, and Americans, to Ukraine of dirty bombs. These are dirty bombs. Each one of these have all the attributes of a dirty bomb. And so the 155 millimeter is a dirty bomb. And it blows about a 300-foot hole, but it was a 900-foot kill ratio, 3 football field kill ratios for each one of these. And the numbers we're talking about, if you look at pictures of Gaza currently, there is no Gaza. Gaza is gone. And they estimate there's actually at least 400,000 people dead, because not everybody died on the day they were injured, right? And mostly women and children, of course, because Israel has never fought a real military. It's never fought anybody that is its own equal. And Iran's not really its own equal. It's so far away, right? They don't have F-35 fighter jets, for instance. Remember this doozy Israel minister laments that nobody will let us starve 2 million Gazans to death. That's not fucking true. That's what you're doing. You're actually starved. Like, the evidence is overwhelming that you've already done this. Because you're a coward, and that's what cowards do. Being a coward comes easy to these people. Their whole legacy is predicated upon being cowards. The free speech fallout from Israel-Hamas war could be dire, and they have meddled in everybody's country, and criticizing them means incredible censorship. Absurd censorship to criticize Israel. Not on my side, of course, because I've been doing this show for over a decade. So I got at least 8 likes on my video. I got 15 people on my show I've been doing for a decade, 5 days a week, if I'm not out doing research expeditions. But all the mouthpieces, the apologists, Ryan Dawson, James Corbett, all of these types of people, Luke Radinsky, Weird Change, all of them will get just endless views on every single video, ridiculous amount of views, right? Ridiculous amounts of contribution. They'll never go out of business. But if you're actually an honest person, then you're just censored out of existence because a coward doesn't want to hear the truth, right? Israel admits burning hundreds of people on the 7th of October. And I mean, there's a lot of people in Israel said, how the hell did 600 people just walk into Israel and do whatever they want for 24 hours with no oppositions for the majority of it? And when the opposition was there, it was only when they were taking back hostages, so Israel wanted to kill the hostages. So they did. Like, guys on motorcycles can't blow up Israel like that. That was Israel. By legitimizing rape, Israel's society takes one step further towards a moral decay. I won't be surprised tomorrow if there's an all-out nuclear war. If Israel attacks Iran tomorrow, go out and buy all the gas you can, because the prices are going to double within 6 days or less. U.S. Representative Andy Ogle, and then of course if they hit the nuclear weapon, nuclear power sites and everything else in both countries, then you can blame the die-offs in a few years, the extinction event, on that instead of Fukushima, right? And that way the nuclear doesn't get a black eye. They should everybody in the nuclear industry should get a black eye every day of their life for the rest of their lives. And their life should be spent at Reactor 3 at Fukushima. U.S. Representative Andy Ogle slammed for his kill them all response to the Palestinian activists. Kill the activists. You remember that guy? U.S. Senator said Israel should drop nuclear bombs on Gaza. Well, the amount of bombs they did, this is that horrific creature known as Lindsey Graham. What a horrific creature. He wakes up in the morning and screams, "We got to protect Israel, kill all the Muslims." His whole legacy has been dedicated to being a monster. Erase Gaza. How genocidal rhetoric became normalized in Israel. It's right from the inception. That's Israel Army PI many settlers' death during the initial Hamas attack on October 7, which is the anniversary tomorrow. It's a very, 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 very self-centered, stupid country. These are stupid people. You can't have a debate with stupid people, and you can't have a debate with Israelis. These are morons. These are morons. If you listen to them, clearly they're morons. Strategic disaster. Liz Truss issues a warning over Iran's pursuit from nuclear weapons. Liz Truss, there was a former British politician who was in Australia for some reason. So let's put her up in the media. Because that makes a lot of sense. Iran's pursuit of nuclear weapons. I can show you headlines from 10 years ago, and 9 years ago, and 8 years ago, and 7 years ago, etc., etc. And endless headlines every month or something. You see, Iran's only 2 weeks away from a nuclear weapon. That's 10 years ago. They still don't have one. But every month or so, you'll see those headlines showing up everywhere. Perpetual propaganda. Hello, everybody. This is your daily dose of reality. The whole Western civilization, because if we allow, surely has been, if we allow Israel, did I get the punchline? To fall, that is completely disastrous for the future of United Kingdom, United States, Australia. If we allow Israel to fall, if Israel didn't exist, can you imagine how much peace there would be? You piece of shit. The boogeyman. And the boogeyman in Israel is a coward. It works. Nuclear is the right choice for Australia. Story by Sky News Australia. So clearly they think of the population as the intellectual of a 10-year-old, right? Says nuclear is the right choice for Australia. You don't have to cover the entire country with a giant tarp of solar panels and wind turbines. First off, what the hell are you talking about? Second off, why won't you do geothermal? And third off, you got a majority of your country is empty. So in your desert would be more than enough alone to change the game. Like solar powered on the roofs of the houses in Australia is incredibly amount of electricity every year just on houses, and it's just a fraction of the houses. And I can't remember, what is it they expect to get up to, like 30 gigawatts in the future? And they always use that routine where there's nothing, only solar and wind turbines, no other electricity available. But every country could do geothermal, and you can do it right away. 660 gigawatts of renewables last year, or this year, 2024. I'm sorry, in just solar panel. 660 gigawatts in 12-month period. This is absurd numbers. The total amount of gigawatts worldwide is around 4,800. And so they see a 40% increase each year in just solar alone. You don't have to cover the entire country. What a creepy person. But that's what that industry is. They're the pro-nuclear. These are the strangest creatures you're ever going to meet. Nuclear energy. Could the technology have a future in New Zealand? Duplicity. And New Zealand's mostly hydro, like water energy, right? They're a perfect place for geothermal, by the way. Why would you consider nuclear the worst of the worst? And nuclear, of course, is the most resource-intensive industry. If you need energy now, why would you even look at nuclear? Like you can build your gigawatts of geothermal in a year or two. You can only build jack in 15 years of nuclear. Not only that, once you take the fuel out of the reactor and put it in a fuel pool, you have radioactive plumes emitting from these facilities 24 hours a day for the next 100 years until you come up with some kind of containment. He says greenhouse gas emissions are smaller than most. Again, like to come out and just blatantly lie about every facet of it it's really spectacular, isn't it? 4 people and 2 companies were fined in Kazakhstan. Today, Kazakhstan is having a poll. And it's going to be rigged 100%. Guaranteed they're going to say, yes, we want a nuclear plant. Why would Kazakhstan, which had over 400 nuclear weapons detonated, and they have just absurd amount of people that are deformed and disfigured, and we'll show you some of that coming up. And if you don't look at it, how the frig are you supposed to understand it? It's not easy to look at this stuff. It's even worse for me because I got to go out and look at it and say, well, that's too graphic, that's too graphic. It's hard to appreciate the post-traumatic stress from all the stuff I look at. 4 people, 2 companies fined in Kazakhstan over polls and possible nuclear power stations. Yeah, so this was about a week ago. Don't quote me. I might see a date here in a minute. So these activists were arrested for wanting to have a poll about nuclear before the vote, which is today, in a country where you have no human rights whatsoever. The government's plan to construct a nuclear power station on September the 10th. And so they're having a referendum today, but I'm going to show you a picture of somebody seriously hurt by radioactive fallout. It's very graphic, but don't look away. How are you supposed to appreciate this? And this is one of the pictures of many. This country's it's an unbelievably impoverished country. Put nuclear there, which is going to take you 15 years or more anyway. You're not looking forward, you're looking to fill your own pockets or something. You're not looking forward. You know technology is rapidly developing, so why would you put your eggs in that basket, a despicable legacy basket? The Kazakhstan's Prosecutor General Office said on September the 12th that 4 individuals and 2 companies were fined for holding an opinion polls on the issues of the construction of a controversial nuclear power station. I got a poll tonight. Will I get a fine, I wonder? Is Fukushima extinction a level event while the world is descending into complete madness? How come I only got 10 thumbs up this far into my video? How come I only got 15 people? How come I only got 14 votes? Because you're talking about nuclear. It's a crime to criticize nuclear, right? I've had gag orders, for goodness sakes, for up to 3.5 years. The unidentified persons and companies were found guilty of failing to inform the authorities about their intentions to conduct an opinion poll. Why would you have to? Well, the authorities are people that you hire to do a specific job. They're not your friggin' boss. They're not your gods. Not your kings. They're not your queens. They're people you hired to do a job. And their job wasn't to do that to you. Right? Their job is not to do that to you. And we got 13 viewers. I don't care how many viewers we got. That don't mean anything. I'm just showing the world what this industry is actually like. They're the most horrific scumbags conceivable. And these are cowards. The pro-nuclear community, unbelievable cowards. They take cowards to a whole different level. If you're pro-nuclear, call in and tell me you're not a coward. Just hear it. I want to hear it. 709, we're here in Canada, 589-4406. I'll accept collect calls. A nationwide referendum on the issue is scheduled for October 6. Nuclear power-related projects has been a controversial issue in Kazakhstan, where the environment was severely impacted by operations in the now defunct Soviet area Semplastik nuclear test site and the Baikonur spaceport. I can't pronounce anything in those languages, sue me, which is still operated by Moscow. Lots of abandoned buildings. And here you have police doing a poll. Look at this. Doing a vote, rather. Nasty. The government and police there are just nasty people, eh? The pro-nuclear community. So whenever I think of nuclear, this is what I visualize. And this is why I created all these particular pictures. And what's really impressive is we've been doing this for a while. For what, a month and a half or something? And I've never shown the same picture twice. I'm well over 3,000 pictures now. Construction of a nuclear power plant to be the largest project in Kazakhstan's history. Wait a second. That was a couple of days ago. You haven't even had a referendum. So why are you suggesting that it's the largest project in their history when you still haven't even had a referendum? In order not to be left on the sidelines of global progress, well, nuclear is falling backwards. I mean, there's 660 gigawatts, which is equal to 660 reactors, came online in 12 months in renewables of solar power in just the last 12 months. Well, by the time this year is over, I should say. We must use our competitive advantages, says shithole Kazakhstan. The media is quick to come out and promote the most toxic issue for humanity for millions of years to come. If citizens vote for during the referendum, this project will be the largest in the entire history of the independent Kazakhstan. Independent shithole, they already done all the nuclear tests, one great big nuclear shithole, right? But you're out there in the media telling everybody's like a banana, so don't worry about it. Scheduled to be held today will be significant irrespective of its results, adding the vote as another vivid manifestation of the concept of a listening state. We'll challenge that in a minute coming up. I have repeatedly expressed my position on the issue of building a nuclear power plant in order not to be left on the sidelines and go, there is no nuclear renaissance. So what frig are you talking about, shitface? Dictator shithead. He also said, despite the construction of the plant being a long-term project, it will ensure sustainable progress. When? A couple of decades. You're a moron. For decades to come. It'll take you decades just to get it built. And as soon as you take the fuel out after 14 months, put it in the fuel pool, everybody's going to be getting sick of heart problems, liver problems, those that are not already sick from 80 years of radioactive fallout in your country. This is what they do. They get up in the morning, they go there and worship 1-ton bags of radiation fallout, and then they go to work. As well as strengthen the country's energy. Like, this is what you should pick up around every nuclear power plant every day, this many bags on each nuclear power plant, because the fuel pools are hemorrhaging radiation 24 hours a day. The amount of radiation we're talking, because you take the fuel out of the reactor, you put it in a fuel pool, it's still splitting atoms, shitface. Morons. Stupid. Nuclear industry I'm talking to. I repeat, the upcoming referendum will be the most important events in all of the years of independence and will have a positive effect on the future development of our country. Shitface added. He really, and when you go look at this guy, the president, he really is a shit face, right? He's drunk all day on top of that. Noting that the opinions in the countries are divided, with safety concerns being a significant factor. They're not divided. The only people that want the nuclear industry there is the people that are going to make money off it and the government. The victims don't want it there, right? These victims don't want nuclear in their country anymore. And if you have a meltdown, my goodness, you can kiss your country goodbye for 1,000,000 years. Why would you take the chance? How can you be that complacent, shithead? These concerns stem from the tragic legacy of the nuclear test site located northeastern Kazakhstan. Don't matter where it's to, the radioactive fallout don't give a shit about borders or distance. Where more than 450 nuclear war bombs were detonated. So a nuclear test is a nuclear war. It's the same bombs, the same radioactive fallout. It's 100% the same bombs and the exact same radioactive fallout. And 450 nuclear weapons. Imagine tomorrow if Iran and Israel exchanges 450 nuclear bombs. You're going to call that, oh, don't worry, they've done more than that in testing. That's not going to be bad. You're not going to say that, are you? When it comes to the radioactive fallout, right? The site was closed in just 1991. The radiation never goes away. Shit for brain, Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan, the consequences of radiation. For 60 years, Russia tested there its first nuclear weapons. Not testing, it's a nuclear war. Every time you set off a nuclear weapon, that's a nuclear war. The radioactive fallout shows up worldwide. It kills everything with replicating cells for millions of years. And people living near the nuclear disaster. So these pictures are going to be hard for some people. We'll get through it. I'll let you know when we're through all these pictures. There's not that many. So we're starting right now. Why would you bring something into your country that does this to the people, to the children, and to everybody? Why would you bring that into your country? Why would you allow that? Why would you take a chance on having this disease factories in your country? Okay, that's the last. Well, there's one more picture, I think, right there. That's it for those pictures, kind of, for the hardcore. This is what nuclear weapons leave in their wake. On natural lakes formed by nuclear bomb explosions, pockmarked the once flat terrain broken up by only empty shells of buildings and is uninhabitable. It appears uninhabitable. No, it's uninhabitable. Can't trust a journalist. A journalist is one of the worst creatures. Journalists are crazy. They are crazy, baby. Oh, I screwed that up a bit. Not unusual around here today, is it? Well, the YouTube censorship is so brutal, eh? Such cowards. They're the problem, right? You might not like my speech, but you want to protect it. And me in particular, I'm just being honest. I can't sugarcoat this stuff. How the fuck do you sugarcoat this stuff? The unnatural lakes, of course, what happens there? Is any migratory birds that lands in it gets irradiated and stops reproducing. The water ends up and goes through the nuclear waste in the ground and ends up in the water tables, and people end up using it in their farms or drinking it. Kazakhstan's unrest, if you protest, again, we will kill you. That's 2022. This is a government. People you hire to do a job and don't like what you're doing, so they'll kill you. If you protest them being corrupt and scumbags and degenerates, well, we will kill you. And they killed hundreds of people during this anti-government protest. And they went into the hospitals where the wounded was to, looking for anybody that was protesting, so they can kill them, I suppose. One of them was shouting, if you go to the protest, we will kill you. And that The men with the guns were from the Special Police Forces Security Services. We're rounding up anyone who took part in the anti-government protest. How dare you question their corruption? And Kazakhstan, of course, has some of the world's largest oil reserves. Most of the population doesn't share in the wealth. They don't have any wealth in that country. Everything is stolen. All their natural resources are stolen. They've been poisoned for 80 years from radiation. They call it independence. Officially, 225 people were killed, many were injured. But some 10,000 people have been detained. 10,000 people were arrested. And these are dictators. $450 nuclear weapons used in their country. The radioactive fallout is incredible. Let me just talk about radioactive fallout for a bit. We got a couple of dozen of these headlines I want to go through before we jump back in. We got a lot of news cycles. They're all short stories. We'll get to that right away coming up. Tokyo newspaper. 6 in 10 Fukushima children tested have diabetes. Not gonna have it, but have it. And the head of Tokyo area medical clinic said we're expecting diabetes in children with Fukushima radiation. And because of radioactive fallout. Because of radioactive fallout. Yummy radioactive fallout. It only gives you every disease in the book. It can't be too bad, can it? Tokyo Hospital posted a sign at the entrance. We do not serve any tests for radiation exposure, all the reactors blowing up and detonating, or treatment for irradiation. But that was TEPCO's hospital, by the way. In a country that picked up 30 million one-ton bags, they still won't acknowledge that the radiation could have been bad. Try wrapping your mind around that statement. German TV interview on Fukushima. More and more people living in highly contaminated places are dying of heart diseases because of cesium. They're talking about Fukushima. Well, Fukushima, Japan is covered in one-ton bags, black one-ton bags of radiation. Children with over 11 atoms a kilogram of cesium start to see heart problems. How are you going to avoid that if with a nuclear plant? When you take fuel out of the pool, put it in or out of the reactor core and put it in the fuel pool, it's horrific radiation emission every day with no containment into the environment. Because the fuel is still splitting atoms, you can't contain it. That's why almost every nuclear plant is surrounded by farms. I just want to run through these headlines so you can appreciate radioactive fallout. Japanese medical experts deeply concerned about the children's radiation exposure. 51% of the children are contaminated with cesium at the hospitals, and some, which is a gamma. Some clothing had high-level gamma rays. This is absurd stuff. You have to throw all the clothing into a nuclear waste site forever. And you see these one-ton bags? Remember, that's to remind you, Japan picked up 30 million. There's like 150,000 sites like this, basically. Extreme increases. So I got to create 149,000 pictures because there's only 1,000 pictures, like real pictures like that. And that's why I'm creating these pictures. It's because there's 150,000 sites where they were storing the one-ton bags. 30 million of them. Japanese author, extreme increases in mortality caused by cardiac disease. This might give the creeps to some people. Well, to everybody, unless you're pro-nuclear, I guess, or Israeli. The numbers were up in just a single month. An extra 12,700 people dropping dead from heart attacks. Heart disease was up 14.6%, and cancer was skyrocketing. In the first year, there was 865,000 extra cancers. Really? In a place where they picked up 30 million one-ton bags? I never would have guessed that, Dana. Oh, by the way, cancer is just one of the many illnesses and diseases and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries that'll manifest besides cancer. Irreversible heart damage for children with 50 atoms a kilogram. Permanent lesions to the organs for adults at 50 becquerels, 50 atoms a kilogram. And you put 200 million atoms on the head of a needle, but you can't see it. So how are you going to be able to find it? So you have to take precautions. You don't eat anything from Japan or anything that might have been imported and relabeled from Japan and shipped to your country. Particularly rice. Hospital presence says people will be healthier after radiation exposure from 4 meltdowns and 8 fuel pools detonating. Imagine, and this guy was he's probably a worse degenerate than the Kazakhstan's president. 2 high school students died in the same school, or 2 high school students in the same school died at once. Yeah, you're in a nuclear wasteland. This is normal stuff, right? 1 million atoms a kilogram of cesium at a Fukushima school. That's after being decontaminated. 1 million atoms a kilogram. A kilogram. You got to multiply that by 66.6 to get a square meter. All nuclear plants are hemorrhaging radiation from the fuel pools 24 hours a day. The numbers are unbelievable. Somebody yelling at me? I got no audio? What's going on here? Over 1,000 nuclear workers' internal radiation of 10,000 plus counts per minute after visiting Fukushima. Over 1,000 nuclear workers have internal radiation of 10,000 plus counts per minute. They updated that to, I can't remember off the top of my head. But Dana, they had paper suits on. I know, right? Did you know paper suits don't work in nuclear meltdowns? They don't even work for paint. Uh, 40% of the Fukushima visitors show internal exposure to radiation, but they weren't allowed to be tested or treated in any of the major hospitals. And why is every nuclear power plant surrounded by farms as far as you can see? That is a frightening statement, isn't it? Fukushima Daiichi worker dies. You got the trolls out there on YouTube all the time going, nobody's ever got a friggin' hair on their head hurt from Fukushima. Have been preparing to cover for your reactor 3. Well, these are homeless. These are not work. They always call them workers. They don't say scientist. They don't say academic. They don't say engineer. It's always the word worker, right? Like the nuclear industry, almost every nuclear power plant worldwide is surrounded by farms as far as you can see. That's not an accident. That's so they can poison the most people possible. Worker dies by decontaminating in Fukushima. Picking up soil, they died because they didn't pick up 30 million one-ton bags because it's like a banana and a potato chip and walking in the sunshine, okay? Report indicates 5 Fukushima workers most likely received a fatal dose of radiation. Yeah, but you got all the trolls out there. Nobody's ever been hurt by Fukushima. Can you imagine what kind of moron and monster you got to be to say stuff like that, actually? In a place where you picked up 30 million one-ton black bags of radioactive fallout, suggesting nobody's ever been hurt. After working in the affected areas, 4 workers have died, victims of leukemia, heart attacks. It's over 300 police officers dropped dead. Over 300 police officers dropped dead. You want to hear that again? Over 300 police officers dropped dead. Hey, people getting sick and dying in a nuclear wasteland. What's the odds? Fireman dies after working in Fukushima and vomited blood frequently and finally died of kidney failure. Why is every nuclear power plant surrounded by farms? Is the most terrifying unbelievable, startling question conceivable. The implications are genocide on a whole different scale. Cesium-137 immediately damaged the heart muscles, is not slow acting, by the way. And gamma, the biggest byproduct is curium isotopes. And curium is nasty. Cesium is horrifying. It pulses energy 600 feet every second. I mean, they picked up 30 million one-ton bags. They says only cesium. That's all they're looking for. These are scum, just degenerate monsters. They look like me and you till they open their mouth. Fukushima worker filmed at plant. I was asked to fake documents underage people were employed. Really, at a nuclear meltdown? No nuclear scientist here? Really? Top Tokyo doctor says the employees that are working there are not academics. They can't even read. It's a coward industry, eh? It's such a coward industry. Another Fukushima cleanup worker dies, found collapsed after removing radioactive soil. But Craig is after telling everybody every day in thousands of comments, nobody's ever died at Fukushima. The public relation firms should be sent to Fukushima so that they're sterilized long enough so they're sterilized so they don't have any babies. At least do it that long. The reporter says he heard ambulances come to Fukushima plant at least 10 times a day. Really, in a nuclear wasteland, what's the odds? 7 people died on a shopping street in Fukushima City. Every building there is entitled to be decontaminated, but they ran out of homeless people to do it, right? Nuclear scientists are not going there. 7 people died on a shopping street because of bananas and potato chips and walking in the sunshine, Dana. Oh, okay. That's what I thought. I'm glad you clarified that. Radiation at Fukushima near levels where humans vomit uncontrollably and hair can be stripped from their bodies. The plumes that were going through the communities were at around 10 sieverts per hour. 3 sieverts is a lethal dose to a human. Picking up 30 million one-ton bags quantifies all of my assertions, by the way. Fukushima workers had a heart attack while working on reactor number 1, was 31 years old. Of course, the industry came out and said, nothing to do with nuclear meltdowns all around them. Imagine being so loathsome. How did we do in our last show? My video was an hour and 54 minutes, 18 seconds. And then when my videos get 12 hours older, they change the numbers. The video typically gets longer. So this one got 23 seconds longer. All my video. I don't see it on any other live shows where you live stream. The video gets longer 12 hours later. Every one of mine do. We believe they're putting software into it. And so I'm posting these shows up at BitChute after. I'm recording it as I speak. After the show, I'll convert it. That takes an hour and a half because you want high quality, right? And then I'll post it up at BitChute, my Dana Durnford on BitChute channel, which is now verified. Try getting verified on YouTube without being a piece of shit. Good luck. Russia intercepts a drone. By the way, the last poll was, is Japan evil to move people back into a nuclear wasteland alongside of 4 ongoing nuclear meltdowns? Somebody accidentally, that was James accidentally voted no, James Lucid. Remember he put that comment in there? But everybody else agreed, right? He agreed too, but I made a slip with the mouse. Russia intercepts a Ukrainian drone near a nuclear plant. Russia? Radiation levels remain within normal limits, says morons. Degenerate Rafael Grossi, the current head of the degenerate, despicable, disgusting United Nations nuclear watchdog, visited the nuclear plant on August 27th. Said it was especially vulnerable to serious accidents because it doesn't have a protective dome that can shield it from missiles, drones, or artillery. If you want to take out a nuclear plant, you just take out the electrical cables, the telephone poles going in. They can't run without power. You can't start up the big generators without external power. On top of that, Iran and Israel war. Iran's 5 nuclear sites are on Israel's radar. You won't believe how many of these stories were out there the weekend. Like, it's unbelievable how many we're talking about. The worldwide media is they're jacked up. They're praying for nuclear war tomorrow. Tomorrow's the shithead anniversary for Israel. Israel, the shithead land. And so they're most likely with the Americans and the British, whether they want to or not, Australia and Canada and a few other. I mean, there's 48 military bases, Israeli U.S. military bases right on Iran's border. Nuclear, the only industry that's determined to wipe out every species on the planet through just radioactive fallout. And the pro-nuclear, they always look like real people until they open their mouth. When they open their mouth, you realize, oh crap, that's a monster. Britain launches another nuclear attack submarine. What do they need attack submarines for? Britain's a fucking shithole right now, isn't it? They let in 3 million invaders in the last couple of years. Since the Queen bitch died, they let in around 3 million of the worst humans imaginable. The Royal Navy's latest Astute-class attack submarine was launched today at the shipyard in Barrows in Funes, Columbia, which is right alongside. Columbia is right over alongside of Sellafield, which used to be called Windscale, which is a nuclear wasteland and surrounded by farms. Like when you zoom back, that's an incredible picture. That's it. All nuclear power plants look like that. When you zoom back, way back, if you take a satellite picture around every nuclear power plant, this is what you're looking at. You really think they're not trying to fuck you over and destroy your health? I guess again. Named after the ancient Greek king. Here is a picture of him there. Look. Octopus head, I think they call him, or something. 300 feet long and 7,400 tons. And why do they do meters? British is not metric. Britain's not metric. So what are you talking about meters for? So 14,800,000 pounds of precious metals gone to an idiot machine that you can't use. Like when you look back on history and you look at what the military is, one of the biggest polluters in human history. They're the biggest consumption of fuel on the planet. Like their ships, just alone, is insane. Their bases, their energy they use on their bases is insane. Human error caused a Navy nuclear attack submarine to smash into a cruiser. A lot of headlines on submarines having accidents this weekend, I noticed. October 2012, a collision occurred off the coast of northeastern Florida between Montpelier, a Los Angeles-class fast attack submarine. Who are they going to attack? Those days are so long gone. Nuclear waste from Hanford is set to move through Spokane. Hanford's such a piece of shit, man. Part of a new initiative. Confirmed the move despite opposition from Spokane city officials. They're moving to Idaho, I think it is. The project will test the shipment of radioactive material in liquid form So everybody on the highway is going to get brutal gamma, alpha, neutron, beta shines, X-rays. 2,000 pounds of liquid nuclear waste along the interstate highways and through Spokane. So it's going to be radiating all the stop signs, the sidewalks, everything. This is a disaster. Low-level radioactive waste to a treatment facility. If it's low level, why can't you treat it where it's to? You got 585 square miles. What do you need to bring it to Idaho for? You despicable, useless scum. Speaking of scumbags, Israel and Iran are at war, and if a nuclear site is hit, all bets for peace are out. There is never going to be any peace. We know that now. Fukushima. Once Fukushima happened, we've seen the extinction event play out. And so how do you cover that up? Because they got to cover it up. Nuclear is too important. It's better to kill everybody on the planet than harm the image of the degenerate nuclear industry. How come I only got 13 viewers? How come I only got 14 likes? How come I only got 17 votes this far into a video? Oh, I'm talking about Israel and nuclear, so I'm not allowed to exist. That's too bad because I do. Ukraine assassinates top Russian boss in an occupied nuclear power plant with a car bomb. All bets are already off, I think. The dramatic moment of security chief of Europe's largest nuclear power plant is blown up in a car bomb assassination. These are monsters, eh? I guess that's one way to do it if you're a monster. I suppose that's whatever works. Moment Russia dropped the largest non-nuclear bomb in Ukraine, wiping out city blocks. Well, I mean, I couldn't. The video wouldn't work, but I seen it before. I got it in another one of my piles of shows I haven't got to yet. It looks like a nuclear weapon to me. And it's all the attributes of a nuclear weapon. Explosion equivalent to 5 North Korean nuclear bombs triggered Tonga volcanic eruption. Why would you, goodness gracious, why would you suggest North Korea nuclear bombs? Unless you're just trying to demonize them for United Nations, right? Who already destroyed them 70 years ago. Millions dead, millions missing, millions in refugee camps, millions unaccounted for. 70 years land, sea, and air embargoes. Never attacked anybody in 70 years, yet they're your biggest nightmare for some reason, because people like this shitface Benjamin, subhuman Benjamin, and when you look at him, you say, yeah, that's a moron. He's a freelance writer. He's not even freelance. I looked him up. He's anthropology. He doesn't know anything about this subject. So why is he writing it? And why is he pointing fingers at North Korea? You know, France, what the French done to the French Polynesians was equal to a Nagasaki bomb a week for 12 years. Why don't you use them as an example? Or what the British done to Christmas Island. The babies are like sacks of jelly. Or to the Montebello Maralinga in Australia. The nuclear bombs there were just as brutal or worse by far, actually. But why would you say it was equal to 5 North Korean nuclear bombs? Benjamin, you disgusting parasite. This is what I mean. There's so many maggots. These are maggots that does this stuff. You're a maggot. You're a true life maggot. So he studies human behavior, basically. So why is he talking about nuclear weapons? And in particular, why is he suggesting it's equal to 5 North Korean? What a piece of shit, man. U.S. nuclear weapons site production sites violated environmental rules. Federal judge decides. for their pit, for making their nuclear plutonium pit production. These are like grapefruits, bigger than grapefruits of plutonium to use for the bomb itself. Because Hiroshima was the only uranium bomb. After that, everything was a plutonium bomb. And this is Los Alamos National Laboratory they're talking about, I think, in particular. And these are always situated above the biggest aquifers in that part of the country. Yeah, Los Alamos National Laboratory in Los Alamos. And look in the background, look at the community right alongside of a weapons site. You got any idea how much radiation is released from these sites every friggin' day? And it bioaccumulates in the air, in the land, in the water. Have failed to convince the court they gave thought to how those effects would affect the environment. Well, you're 80 years beyond the 8 ball there, shitface. The decision arrives as U.S. authorities this week certified with a diamond stamp Savannah River, and Los Alamos, and the rest of those national laboratories are all on the biggest aquifers in the country. Like, it's unbelievable how evil this industry is when you look at it. I got to do a video on nuclear dumping and nuclear, like dumping it in the ocean, dumping it in the ground, dumping it in the local landfills and just waste sites that are Superfund sites and everything else. It'll take a week and a half to get through the whole video because it's shocking what I got along, what I gathered up in just stories like this. It's shocking, really, that the world has not gone to war against this coward industry. Construction of Ontario nuclear reactors should move forward despite incomplete design, regulator says. There's a degenerate Globe and Mail who demonized me, actually. The biggest media in Canada on top of that. Construction of Ontario nuclear reactors should move forward despite incomplete design. The regulator says. Just go ahead. We got a rubber stamp. We'll mail it to you. You can just stamp everything and pretend we were there. Corrosion cracking at the Palisades nuclear plant exceeded previous estimates, says the non-regulatory commission. Which is, they just gave them almost $2 billion loan to reopen. Stress corrosion cracking in the steam generators exceeds the estimates based on previous operating history. So would that mean all nuclear reactors have these particular attributes? Of course, Dana. It's known as the Wigner effect through the bombardment of neutrons and gamma shines and X-rays and beta rays and alpha shines. It would represent the first recommissioning of a retired disease factory in U.S. history and could restart as early as August next year. I can't see that personally, but in addition to the main 800 megawatt reactor, Holtec, of all people, Chris Singh, what a despicable creature that guy is. What he done to your country is unbelievable. Because he's a Pakistani, right, or an Indian, and he don't give a fuck about you people. He makes profit by skimming. He makes profit by coming in under. So say there's a $2 billion bursary there to clean up a nuclear site, a nuclear power plant that's closed. Well, he makes his money by spending less money. That's the worst case scenario when it comes to nuclear, folks. It's going to be the location of its first 2 small modular reactor units. Well, that's interesting because you don't have a design application into the regulatory agency. So you're talking decades and decades down the road. And geothermal and solar and wind is already here, man, and it's going to curb stomp any of your dreams, you disgusting parasite. Which would potentially add an additional 800 megawatts. So, so what you're saying, 2 small modular reactors are 400 megawatts each? That's a large reactor. That's not a small modular reactor. So Holtec is just hoodwinking everybody by suggesting it's a small modular reactor. 400 megawatts is not, that's a huge site. That's a massive site. You can't call that a modular reactor. It's absurd to suggest that that's a full-size nuclear site you need to accommodate one of those types of disease factories. The growing movement of Indigenous leaders across northern Ontario opposing the nuclear waste dump, we can only hope they find me and get educated, and then they can really go to war against their lifelong enemy of every species. Now, I was up there in 2019. I don't know the exact numbers, but there's at least 7,000 lakes. It's a beautiful place. And you put nuclear, like everything that's going to be brought to the Nuclear Waste Management Organization site is vented. It's vented on the highways or trains or whatever. So anything living on either side of that for 50 miles is going to get crazy radioactive fallout over its legacy. And when it gets to the site, if they get that one site, they bought 1,600 acres of land. They only need 250 acres, which is like a square mile for the site. And everything is repackaged when it gets there. In other words, and because when they acknowledge that everything is repackaged, it means that everything is vented all the way there. Because you can't contain it and ship it there and let oxygen back in there, because then it'll detonate, right? Oxygen, because in order to contain it, they have to fill up the space with helium or nitrogen. But if you introduce oxygen in there, that'll actually detonate. So everything is vented. So they're going to repackage everything surrounded by farmland. And why do they hate the natives so much? We see them do this to all the native communities worldwide, the different native communities, right? We live off the land every day, and it's the most precious food market we have in the world. Well said. They're now mobilizing across the region, but I don't see, well, the media is not going to put it out there, but I don't see anybody that's actually articulating what the issue is. They know it's wrong, they know it's bad, but they don't understand the big picture where the fuel is still splitting atoms. So you're shipping fuel that is still splitting atoms, and then you're going to repackage it at the site where it's still splitting atoms. It's insane. There's a 5.5 million assemblies currently, and then it's going to take them how long to build this site? Incredible long. And then it's going to be 40 years of bringing it there. So you're talking about another 5.5 million fuel assemblies. And who's to say they're not going to start taking other countries' fuel too? The demonstration followed a letter signed by 9 chiefs last week asking the degenerate, disgusting Nuclear Waste Management Organization, which is the industry itself, that had $26 billion for over 20 years. And if you got $26 billion, it's a lot of interest every day. It's a lot of interest every year. It's a massive amount of interest every decade. So how come 20 years ago it was $26 billion and today it's still $26 billion? Where is all that interest going to when they don't have a repository? They don't want a repository because then they won't have that money to spend every year, right? And they don't want a solution because then everyone won't get sick and die. Not to respect their will, not to bury Canada's most radioactive nuclear waste to fuel assemblies in a deep geological repository. These are not geological. Like once you dig down there and crack it open, it's no longer contained. You have broken that, right? Like if I dig a tunnel under your house, what's the chance that that's going to crumble? Pretty real, right? If I put fuel down there that when it finally melts down, because it'll eventually melt down, will catch all the other containers on fire. They're burning, each one is burning at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, and it doesn't need oxygen to sustain the chain reaction. And so it's going to dry out all the water in the soil all around it. And if any water gets in there, it'll detonate, it'll split the earth open. And that'll be destroyed for billions of years, the environment there, for thousands of miles. Why would you want that there? So English, they bought 1,600 acres of land, prime farmland, and they want the farmer in prime farmland, as typical, and they want the farmers to continue to farm during the whole process, because the radioactive fallout ends up in the farms are shipping the radioactive food out to poison everybody, and when you go there with the Geiger counter, it's high, but it's not too bad, because you're shipping that radioactive food out of there all the time, right, and moving the radiation somewhere else. It will begin in 2040 if they vote for it this year, and it will take 40 years to complete. Transportation, rather. Respect our land, air, and water. It's pretty clever, actually. The site selection process has been undergo for 20 years. Well, what do you mean 20 years? And you had $26 billion for 20 years, but it never gained no interest. And you're the government. That's pretty interesting on its own, isn't it? La 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 la. Is Fukushima extinction level event why the world is descending into complete madness? Well, it makes sense, right? All the species are dying off. It can't sustain the population anymore, so let's kill everything, including the species that are left. That makes a lot of sense. Like, the reason the population expanded so much is pretty simple. It's quite simple, really. So, in a healthy population, you have less children, right? There's more stability. And in desperate times, like when the species are threatened, for instance, they'll produce a prolific amount of babies in order so the species can survive. And that's what we're seeing with the human race. The reason we're seeing such a big population is a autoimmune trigger to make sure the human population can survive what's happening. It's a direct response, and poverty. And so I remember this study, it's a very long time ago, about Ethiopia. And they were asking the women, why are you having babies when you got no water, you got no food? And of course, the obvious thing was sex was the only pleasure that they had. Their life was completely void. They didn't have chocolate bars, they couldn't go buy chips or a can of drink, they couldn't bake a cake, they didn't have a meal a day, a meal a week, let alone 3 meals a day. They didn't have a home, they didn't have any stability whatsoever, no hope. And so a lot of the times, sex was the only type of pleasure they could have, right? But also, it was a trigger offense you see in all the species where they would, when the species is threatened, they will start producing a massive amount of babies to try to keep that gene pool alive. And that's what we're seeing with the human race over the last number, in particular post-Fukushima or post-nuclear industry. So once the nuclear, I can show you the studies, I'm not going to do it tonight. Soon I'll be able to just recall them up right away for me, but in a few months' time, right? But right now, when you look at the sex ratio studies they've done after weapons fallout, what they call testing, but it's nuclear war, it's the same radioactive fallout. And so when they've done population studies and sex ratio studies, males to female, there's more males than females is emblematic of radiation poisoning for the whole population. And so that's why they do those particular studies, because the whole population. So like after Chernobyl, all of Europe was brutal. But France, of course, claimed Chernobyl never went there. It skipped there and went all the way to Britain, way past it. where they closed 9,400 farms. So when Britain closed 9,400 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom, that was an admission that you should have abandoned Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom, because the radiation doesn't just seek out the farms. And if you close the 9,400 farms, then you're supposed to close all the fresh water and all the communities, because the radiation doesn't differentiate between a community and a farm. It doesn't care where it lands, right? It doesn't just look for farms and let's go down there, folks. 13 First Nations signed on to last week's statement opposing the repository. That's great news. And 13 First Nations are now signed to last week's statement, including Northwest Angle, number 33, committed to the cause on Wednesday. Signatories include Fort Williams, right across the whole, I think all the way up to Manitoba is now looking at this. So that's fantastic news. Described the effects of the chief, North Bay, Thunder Bay, on the Lake Nipigon. He described the effects of warming climate over his lifetime, pointing to turkey vultures, pelicans, black squirrels, raccoons, coyotes, Lyme disease carrying deer ticks, a species that have recently migrated into the local ecosystem. Well, they left their other system because it's so radioactive. That's why they migrated, not climate change. Climate change is radioactive fallout. It's real. The supercell storms we're seeing you didn't see them pre-Fukushima, they're all post-Fukushima. So the supercell cyclones, the typhoons, the hurricanes that are coming ashore at 200 mile per hour, sustained winds, we documented endless amount of them, which means they're gusting close to 300 mile per hour. And we just look at the weather wars we see now at Hurricane Helena. That was a weather war, right? It was 20 trillion gallons of water. 20 trillion. It's enough to take, so if you take a ton and put it in a 1 ton black bag, it's enough of them if you line them up side by side, because they're 6 feet, right? By 6 feet, by 6 feet. If you line them up, if you stack them on top of each other, it's enough to go to the moon and back over 400 times. Like to the moon and all the way back again, 400 times. Or over 800 times past the moon. U.S. nuclear power regulators urged to address the dirty bomb risk to society. Well, a nuclear power plant is a dirty bomb. It's hemorrhaging radiation into the environment. There is no dirty bomb that can match it. Nuclear power plants are splitting atoms into the ecosystem 24 hours a day, and the numbers we're talking about is enough to give every creature on the planet illnesses and diseases, not immune deficiencies, forever. The whole story is absurd, and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in the United States are the worst humans you'll ever come across. It'll be, if you took their DNA, it's probably not even human. The U.S. nuclear regulator has not acted on recommendations to address radiological security risks to the economy and society, including those from dirty bombs. Well, first off, it's not illegal to poison you with radiation. And Congress and parliaments, and the Diet in Japan, for instance, like the government of Canada doesn't have the authority, the government of the United States and Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, stuff like that, don't have the authority to make it illegal to poison you with radiation. Only the Regulatory Commission has that authority. They're not going to do that. If you do that, you got to take all the genocide machines out of the hospitals. Because radiation in the hospital is genocide. Do you want me to? You don't want me to go down that road. Trust me. I think I'll do it just for badness. How about that? I want to give you a little taste of radiation in the hospital, because we should do at least one show every single week on genocide at our hospitals. It's really something what they're doing in the hospitals. I got no concept. It's murder of the worst degree, right? You can call it a silent epidemic if you want to, but it's an epidemic of murder. And because they do it all day, every day, they become disenfranchised, complacent to it. Introduction to radiation injury and another silent epidemic. So when you go into the hospital and they do radiation chemo or radiation therapy, okay? It wrecks your whole, everything on your body. And I have studies that articulate it better than I can. Radiation-induced injuries to the visual pathway, so your eyes gets destroyed. Radiation injuries to the heart. So you're going in there to get radiation therapy, and your body is under siege. Cardiac injuries following treatment for breast cancer. So they radiate the women's breasts, and they end up with heart problems, or they die from radiation to the heart. Radiation-induced kidney injuries. So when you go and get radiation, you can come out with, a few months later, you could have 7 different tumors all over your body, for instance. Hypoxia associated with chronic radiation-induced lung injury. Chronic radiation-induced lung injuries. Blood spinal cord barrier disruption, central nervous system radiation injury. Well, there's studies out there, because there's only 3% of the people live 5 years, over 5 years, with radiation therapy. And they're saying, why are we still doing this when there's only 3% survival rate more than 5 years? It's better not to do nothing than do that. Radiation-induced bowel injuries is one of my favorite. Laser treatment of severe radiation injuries of lower intestinal tracts. Radiation-induced kidney injuries. The breast radiation injury litigation. They actually removed the breast of over 10 million women that didn't have breast cancer. And they bombarded them with radiation on top of that. That was early 2000, right? Because it's easy money, right? And chop their breast off. Big money. Trauma to the whole family and to the victims forever. Central nervous system radiation injury. Injury to the cranial nerves and nucleids following proton beam radiation therapy. Notice they always use the word radiation therapy. Radiation injuries to the head and neck. Radiation-induced brain injuries, brain necrosis. I can show you videos of the victims' loved ones talking about this. It'll make you cry, guaranteed. The assessments of radiation-induced brain injury. Radiation-induced regional lung injuries, small bowel injury, radiation injuries. 95 radiation-related breast injuries. Radiation-induced intestinal syndromes. Vitamin C uptake may save lives after radiation accidents. And B12 is another one, vitamin. It's very good for you. Radiation-induced brain necrosis. Man, there's so many different studies on that. It's shocking. Radiation-induced normal tissue injuries. Radiation-induced rectal injuries. Oh, that sounds like a peachy time. Spinal cord recovery from radiation injuries. Radiation injuries to the aorta and the branch arteries of your heart. Radiation-induced bowel injuries. Radiation injury to the central nervous system. Radiation rectal injuries. Tons and tons of studies on that. I can do 10 shows this week on radiation injuries. I have so much of it. Radiation lung injuries. Your glands radiation injury, liver disease from radiation therapy, bile duct injuries from radiation therapy, radiation, experimental study, acute brain radiation injuries from radiation therapy induced brain injuries, radiation, tons of studies on radiation brain injuries, my goodness. And then they're going to use more radiation to treat the radiation brain injuries. Oh, the doctor said he needs more radiation. Here, fill this or what's this? Oh, that's your will. Because you ain't going to make it. Brainstem injuries after intensity modulated radiation therapy. Modulated radiation therapy. If it's radiation therapy, how come we can't find studies saying how good it is? Radiation-induced brain injuries. Language decline after brain radiation therapy. Radiation-induced brain injuries after radiation surgery. Radiosurgery of the brain. Calling it radiosurgery, radiation surgery. No, they're not monsters at all, are they? Recurring brain tumors from radiation injuries. Radiation-induced brain injury, radiotherapy, radiation-induced brain injuries, clinical brain tumor progression from radiation injuries after your head was irradiated. So you get brain tumors, a tumor on your brain from radiation therapy. You can't keep up with it. There's so much, and there's all of these are brutal, and all of them are ignored by the hospitals. No, you'll be okay. Say oh, geez, I think you're gonna have a big tumor in there. I'm not gonna go through the rest of them, but in just that little folder I got. You can look at them later if you want. It always gives me the woolies. And then everybody's out there, no. Doctor, is there something you can do? Well, there is radiation therapy. Is there anything else? Just radiation therapy. How about DCA? Oh, no, that's illegal in Canada. They made it illegal after about 3 years of me promoting it. Then all of a sudden, right across Canada, it became illegal. You used to be able to walk in any pharmacy with a compound chemist, they would make it on the spot. But any pharmacy will have it within a week. But any compound chemist can make it right there. And you come back a few hours later and they'll have a bottle of it for you. It's just a mineral, right? The DCA. All it does is unplate your blood. Microwave-induced brain injuries. Radiation-induced skin wounds. And rectal injuries from radiation. Never heard of that one before. Several decades after radiation therapy, your heart is destroyed. Radiation-associated cancer risk among injured children treated at different trauma centers. Impaired wound healing after radiation therapy. Yeah, your body can't produce the white blood cells to go fix things because you're so irradiated, you have hypoxia. Science detected the quantum kick from a single nuclear decay. So the nuclear decay is almost at the speed of light. And so basically, you know how on a sunny day, you're sitting in your living room, your house is spotless, and you look up and you see all this dust floating around in the air, right? You ever see that? On a really sunny day? You're like, my house is spotless. But there's this dust floating around, fine particles floating around in the air. Well, think of that kind of environment, and then you got the radioactive decay, and those particles will move that's in your ear. That's basically, right, layman's terms, what we're talking about here. And that's how they quantify. But now what they're using is potassium. 10 nuclear decays every second in a typical banana. Why would you use potassium? Radioactive potassium. It's not radioactive. You can't make a dirty bomb out of it. Just let me explain the difference between potassium and cesium and strontium, for instance. This is really cool stuff. You won't regret it. Maybe you will, who knows. But so a gram of, or curie, is 37 billion atoms, anthropogenic man-made atoms, and they're pulsing energy at the speed of light every second per curie. And there's, say, 88 curies per gram of cesium-137. So 88 times 37 billion. Each atom is capable of making you sick in increments over the rest of your life, because your body attacks it for the rest of your life with white blood cells. But potassium is irrelevant. Your body needs potassium. So potassium, though, curies per gram is 0.000071 curies per gram. It's 71 10 millionths of a curie per gram. 71 10 millionths of a curie per gram. 71 10 millionths. Versus cesium is 88 times 37 billion atoms per gram. So whenever you hear academics talking about potassium and nuclear, you're actually listening to a scumbag. Oh, everybody, welcome. Let's look at the poll for a moment. Is Fukushima extinction level event why the world is descending into complete madness? I'm an hour and a half into my Sunday show, the first show of the week. I only got 20 likes. I only got 23 votes. Oh, friggin' idiots, man, out there censoring you. Nuclear nerds needed. Big pay awaits. Yeah, the nuclear industry is falling apart in the academic world, too. And it's big money. We know that. We talk about that all the time. A talent deficit made the biggest drag on the momentum beyond a global nuclear resurgence. Well, there is no nuclear resurgence. It's not the drag or beyond the momentum of it. There is no nuclear resurgence. This year alone is 660 gigawatts of solar. And there's not even a gigawatt of new nuclear coming to the grid. So how can anybody suggest there's a resurgence or a renaissance? As the technology is increasingly recognized as efficient and proven way to produce reliable emission-free electricity. And so this narrative of emission-free, carbon-free is an agenda. It's the most resource-intensive industry in human history. And they show you this stupid picture so often, isn't it? It's absurd how many times you see this stupid picture. Figures show the nuclear industry, because if you go up a couple of 100 feet, it's surrounded by farms as far as you can see, right? And then that fresh water is used for those farms on top of that, and it's incredibly polluted. Like, there's no fish jumping on that lake because they've been killed off by the nuclear industry. Figures show the nuclear industry is failing to produce enough nuclear engineers to meet what is projected to be the growing demand as the industry veterans age out. There is no growing demand. It's absurd. The industry is falling apart in everywhere you look, in every direction. College enrollments are not encouraging. Not only are the numbers of degrees in nuclear engineering falling to 450 a year, PhD awards are less than half of that. And the only people that are going to universities for nuclear are the inbreeds of the people that are already in it. Nuclear is a lucrative field. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics report a median annual salary of a little over $125,000. And fewer than 70,000 people are in the U.S. nuclear industry. The Department of Energy forecasts a need to triple that number to meet its 2050 goals. Like, to suggest that by 2050 you're going to triple nuclear, you're going to have another 200 reactors in the United States is absurd. They're not even trying to build one. They don't have the real estate, first of all. They don't have the supply network on top of that, which is very technical. It's 1 million corporations. The nuclear industry is dependent upon 1 million corporations making parts. They don't exist. It's a very, very incredibly huge chain supply. In the United States, the first nuclear plant in 7 years opened last year outside of Augusta, Georgia. Yeah, and the other one was Watts Bar, which took 42 years to bring to fruition, right? Watts Bar 2, was it? Lying is so natural. That's the only reason a journalist exists. It's just to come out and write a stupid article with a bunch of lies into it and then go take their loved ones on a round-the-world vacation. Because that pays good. Being a scumbag pays good. And being a scumbag for these people comes natural because they're like their parents. They were scumbags. Like their parents who were scumbags. And while the plant is providing electricity to the grid, its completion was 7 years overdue and $15 billion over budget. That's not over budget. That's absurdness. That's upset. That's robbery. $15 billion. And 7 years overdue. It was more than that. More nuclear energy is on tap. The Generation 4 reactor by the Kairos Power at Oak Ridge, Tennessee has been approved for construction. Well, what, like, if that's what you're talking about, like, at Oak Ridge, which is a national laboratory, it's an experimental reactor you're talking about. So that's your hope, is an experimental reactor that's at least 2 decades from fruition? If it's not built, it's going to take forever to build it, right? We know that about this industry. It's got to run for 10 years to find any design flaws. Then you got to re-engineer all the design flaws out of the old application, which takes around 300 to 400 NRC employees to go through. And then you got to reissue that. You got to rebuild it. You got to make sure that works. That's another 10 years down, 15, 20 years down the road. Because you got to build the facilities. You got to run it for a decade to get the kinks out of it. You can't just drop a design and go build it. It doesn't work that way. Super rich are looking at nuclear power for emission-free yacht voyages. Why are they putting out these stories when there are no small modular reactors applicable for this particular application? Because they're just trying to build a hype in an industry. That's what this is all about. There's 1,000 public relation firms, and they got money to spend, and so they get a lot of other medias to print this kind of stuff. They introduce it to their audience and get their audience fantasizing about it, in the hopes, in the childish hopes of having a renaissance. And then Net Zero, of course, which is a paper by Miles Allen. Yachts belong to the super and ultra rich are known as fuel guzzling machines. Well, like the biggest fuel guzzling machines are the military's machines, right? The military ships, the resources that they use is absurd. Even the small military, 100-foot military ships, the amount of fuel they burn is frightening. The fighter jets are burning $30,000 an hour. You know, there was a study done on, I think it was the B-72 or something, one of those 24-hour, because they have these nuclear weapons that are up in the air all the time. There's always at least 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 of these high-altitude planes. And the higher the altitude, the less efficient the engines, right? And the bigger the particulates they're leaving in the upper atmosphere, which are catastrophic for plants and animals and everything that's dependent upon the sun. The 8 million species. And they burn the equivalent of 1 million cars in 24 hours. Fuel that you would use for 1 million cars. That's what each of those planes are burning, because they're so inefficient on top of that from the high altitude. That's just a fraction of the waste from this stupid, idiot military-industrial complex worldwide. These are literally idiots. Like they lull in the young people because they don't know the difference, right? And then they get exposed to so much carnage. Not many of them escapes it with a brain on their shoulder. Some do, but not many. 118 dead as a hydrogen peroxide torpedo sunk the Russian nuclear submarine, the Kursk. This is the official story, I guess, is it? Remember the Kursk in 2000, 24 years ago, sank. A lot of people suggest that was American sank that, right? So the number of gallons in a ton depends on the substance. Water has 240 gallons in a U.S. ton, which is 166 trillion one-ton bags. Is it? Divided... No, wait, no. We'll get there. It's 200 million one-ton bags. 200 million one-ton bags are 6 feet divided by 500 feet, because the one-ton bags are 6 feet, right? So we divide the numbers by 500 to get miles. That's 200 million miles. And then, I get this backwards or something. And the moon is 238,000 miles away. So 200 million miles divided by 5,000, 200 million feet divided by 5,000 feet. Let me come back to that one for a second. I didn't take a screen capture of the 6. I think it shows up down here though. Yeah, so you had 40 trillion gallons divided by 240 gallons. Then the next one is divide that by 6 and you got a billion feet. Then divide a billion feet, because the 6 feet is the width of these one-ton bags. Divide that next number 200 and you get 200 million miles of bags. And divide that by 238,855 which is the distance to the moon, and you get 837 trips to the moon, or 418 trips to the moon and back of one-ton bags. So you can take one-ton bags, go to the moon and back with one-ton bags side by side. That's how much water fell in 24 hours during Hurricane Helene. And these communities were washed away, and no one's allowed to go in there. They're arresting people. There's horror stories of people like that took their personal helicopters in. They rescued this one husband and wife, lost their house, lost everything, their pets and everything, and they were stranded because there's all this water and this. And anyway, this helicopter pilot was out there looking for people to rescue, and they had a baby too, right? So we went down and landed, and took the mother and the baby, but left his son there with the father, the husband of the lady and the baby, because he had a small helicopter, and he was going to come back and pick both of them up, right? So we brought him back to brought him into the next community, the closest community, and FEMA and the fire department told him that if he went back and rescued anybody, they were going to arrest him. And he had to go back to get his son anyway. So they let him go back and get his son, but he had to leave the father there. He wasn't allowed to rescue him, because the fire department said that was their job. And I can't comprehend that, right? That kind of hubris. The Belgium Doel 4 reactor outage is extended. What else is new? The French power company Energy has extended the repair and maintenance outage at Unit 4 in Belgium after discovering damage to the concrete dome. And look at this. Of course, it's surrounded by farms. The future fusion goal, U.S. Dream Team to 3D print tungsten for nuclear reactors. And because the interior of the nuclear reactors, the heat is the problem for the fusion reactors. What is it, 180 million degrees Fahrenheit temperatures or something? They can do all these tricks they want, but it's not going to resolve it. The reason fusion works on the sun is because the sun can expel extra energy a million miles out into space right away, right on the drop of a hat. It's rock and roll time. But you can't do that in a reactor. You can't, because you're talking about enormous temperatures on top of that. And then you're dependent upon magnets. Like, there's a theory there, but you can do a theory for anything, but that doesn't mean it's going to work. And so why are they wasting this enormous time and energy and resources? And enormous is not the right word for it. Absurd, monetary. If you took the same people, they're incredibly educated, motivated, because they're allegedly trying to do this for energy, but clearly that's not what this is all about, and took this and resolved deep geological repository, because you don't have to dig too deep in order, or drill too deep to get 1,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, which is hotter than gas, oil, coal, or nuclear reactors are running to produce energy. And because that's the only thing that's holding up, it's not really holding it up. Because you can buy a heat pump for, say, $3,000 on Amazon. And it's pretty simple. You just get a chunk of cement, a couple of bags of cement, make a block, and you mount it on top of the block of cement. It's really easy. And then that takes the air and converts it into heat. And so winter or summer, you can maintain the temperature in your house at around 61 degrees, basically. But with these, you can bring your heat up to 80 degrees, and you're going to use about 1/4 of the electricity that you normally use. And that's a pretty darn good deal, right, for a $3,000 investment. But in the summertime, you can use it as an air conditioner and keep your house at, so it's easy, it's really dirt cheap, it's really simple to keep your house at around 60 degrees. So imagine in the summertime, when it's 100 degrees outside, your whole house is constantly around 60 degrees. Nice and cool, right? And then it's 1/4 of the price you would pay for an air conditioner. Probably less than that, right? Because air conditioners they're not bad. Like mine was actually really good. I was running mine 24 hours a day. It wasn't too bad. I only have a small one, but it done the job. Kept you alive during the heat wave. An Iowa University in collaboration with the Department of Energy began to work on a Dream Team project. Will use 3D printing technologies to make heat-resistant shields with tungsten for nuclear reactors. But there is no nuclear renaissance, so why are we bothering? Because the nuclear industry is holding our energy hostage. We're not allowed to have any other energy, any nuclear, according to these people. Sizewell C project hits a fresh delay as investment talks drag on. UK ministers make contingency plans to fund a $20 billion plus power plant. Well, the one they got now is going to be around $50 billion, not $20 billion. And so this one ain't going to be any different. That whole coastline is incredibly radioactive. Look at the fishing boats. Right alongside a nuclear power plant, of all places. What an evil, despicable industry, eh? New Missouri House Committee will investigate the impact of St. Louis nuclear waste. Another story of nuclear waste. And look at these 45-gallon barrels. I mean, they buried the rusty barrels that are already leaking in the ground. You really think that's not going to end up in your water tables? You really think you're going to contain that or dig it up later? Hanford dumped 1.4 billion, 300,000 gallon, those big 300,000 gallon barrels you see at oil sites, those great big skyscraper type barrels. They dumped 1.4 million of them directly into the soil in the 50s and 60s during the Manhattan projects. That's got stuff that's gone through a chain reaction, just splitting atoms. It was equal to an aquarium 6 feet wide, 518 feet tall, wrapped around the entire planet more than once. Like when you look at the nuclear waste from the industry, you can't keep up with it. Their legacy, you cannot. There's so many of these Superfund sites, you can't even keep up with that. Atomic fallout. Workers refine uranium downtown St. Louis And they used the stuff left over to build sidewalks and schools and malls and houses. And the whole town's one big stupid nuclear wasteland. All the water, they dumped all kinds of it directly into the Missouri River, into the quarry in Weldon Spring adjacent to the Missouri River. It's horrifying, with waste falling off trucks. They took it up to the airport and buried it into the ground. They had waste falling off the trucks when they were bringing. Complacency that word probably came from this place right here. Deteriorating barrels of radioactive waste polluted the site and leaked into the. Every time I hear the word leak, I just want to kick the shit out of a nuclear scientist or a journalist. I'm not hard to get along with. The waste was then taken to a nearby site along Coldwater Creek, where many people played growing up and swam in as teenagers and now got hideous illnesses and diseases and autoimmune deficiencies and illnesses. It was sold to another company so they can extract the precious metal from the nuclear waste. And then that radioactive material was dumped in the Westlake landfill where it remains today. There is no horror novel out there that comes close to the nuclear industry, 1% of the nuclear industry's Machiavellian habits. The United States Army Corps of Engineering is overseeing the cleanup of Coldwater Creek. They're the last people you want in charge of anything. They're the very last people you want in charge. And this politician used as Representative Teresa, I believe, Burns. My apologies if I butcher someone's name. I'm pretty good at it. Has said she would sneak in and swim as a team. In fact, if you can get a job for butchering people's name, I'd be filthy rich, wouldn't I? A U.S. nuclear attack submarine crashed into an oil tanker. So many of these stories, eh? Well, that's what they're only good. That's what the only thing they're good for is making a fucking disaster. And you actually can't keep up with these stories. Constellation Energy Corporation rallies on Microsoft nuclear deal. So again, we see in Australia, all the market, when Microsoft said they were going to reopen Three Mile Island, the Australian stock market came out and told the investors that stocks are rising, look at this. And people bought into it. And so then they told the other, look at this, the uranium is going up. They never even told them why then. And so after about a week, they sold off their shares, which they got for dirt cheap last month, because they do the same thing every month and a half, 2 months, right? They artificially inflate the shares with stories like this. I mean, it's not even speculation. It's 100% criminal and robbery. The captain of a Navy nuclear attack submarine was removed for crashing into a cruiser. You got any idea how much fuel these stupid things burn? It's unbelievable. Nuclear energy will accelerate the world, the safest deadly poison in the world, and that Fukushima is the best possible advertisement for nuclear power and its safety. Yeah, really? Picking up 30 million one-ton bags is... 30 million one-ton bags is somehow or another advertisement for safety, is it? There's so many worthless people, and the majority of them work for the nuclear industry and for media. About a decade ago, the Union of Unconcerned Scientists broadcasted an urgent request to U.S. citizens. They were to write their governors and Congress people to demand one thing: improve nuclear safety. Instead of saying they should get rid of nuclear because they're all hemorrhaging radiation into your communities and they're destroying your health and your children on a scale unheard of pre-nuclear industry. Sounds like a noble pursuit in theory, except that in all of the U.S. history, the recorded numbers of deaths due to nuclear power is 0. Ha-ha! And we see this a lot. It's typical Rod Adams material, right? Kathleen Higley or Geraldine Thomas or the rest of them. The apologists, right? Wade Allison. These are nuclear cranks. When they come out and tell you nobody's ever died from nuclear, it's absurd. It's so absurd. that the media that publishes stories like this should be banned immediately, but you gotta keep them there because you need free speech. Not that you're going to find it on YouTube. If you look at my video at night, clearly there's no free speech on YouTube. In fact, nuclear is the safest industry in the entire United States. And this is hilarious. Working in a nuclear plant is safer than working in a library. Like 90% of a nuclear site has to go to a nuclear dump from the gamma shine, the neutron bombardment, everything is radioactive. But the employees are not. Working in a nuclear plant is safer than working in a library. It's absurdness, right? They only exist because they're willing to lie to the extreme. And then they bring up the nuclear bomb routine. All nuclear power plants are hemorrhaging radiation from the fuel pools. This is why they have the tall, skinny stacks to vent that off-site. And this is why off-site, all the nuclear plants typically are surrounded by farms as far as you can see. And in the 20,000-year combined nuclear operations, there have only been 3 core meltdowns. Really? Except for Santa Susana, the SL1. Hanford had multiple nuclear meltdowns. Los Alamos National Laboratories has multiple nuclear meltdowns. Savannah River has multiple nuclear meltdowns. There's been meltdowns all over the world. And 3 core meltdowns. So Fukushima had 4 core meltdowns and 8 fuel pools with 36 reactor cores, or 32 reactor cores meltdown. Each fuel pool has 4 reactor cores minimum into it. And there's 8 in Fukushima that are gone. And so anybody that writes this stuff, I would love to meet them. I like to waterboard them a couple of 100 times to see what I can get out of them, to tell you the truth. The real danger is from, not that I would do that to anybody, but I don't consider academics, nuclear scientists, humans. I got no evidence that they're humans. The real danger is from radioactive particles escaping from the fuel pool, not the reactor. The fuel pools are splitting atoms with no containment. Horrible people, eh? Oh, yes. 8 more Pokemon. Oh, that's quite a relief, isn't it? 8 more Pokemon. I guess that's where we're going to pick up tomorrow night. 8 more Pokemon utility hole covers being installed in Fukushima, Japan. 8 more Pokemon covers being installed in Fukushima, Japan. And that's to get tourists to go into a nuclear wasteland. That's the idea of that, right? And he said the people living around Chernobyl today get as much as the people in Colorado where there's low-level radiation from granite. And how the hell do these people... Again, I can't imagine these people own a mirror in their house. Because otherwise they're going to get up within 2 inches of it and scream, I'm a piece of shit. Yeah. Clearly, the nuclear industry has the most scumbags of every industry worldwide. And journalists, of course. Let me see what I got down here now. Where's that one? That one there. Israel sniper. I killed 13 Palestinian children today in a single day. I guess you got to be proud. Might as well be proud about something. Because in his country, he's a hero, right? Imagine, I killed 13 children and put that up on your Facebook page so that your friends could admire you. That's an Israeli. That's a Jew, right? I don't care about anything, let alone themselves. Because being stupid is easy. Being a good person is very difficult, right? Let's close the poll up, I guess. Is Fukushima extinction level event why the world is descending into complete madness? Yep, it is so. Wow. Managed to scratch up 27 likes and 30 votes. Took 2 hours. That's some censorship that he does to me, isn't it? My goodness. Kevin's going to start doing title pulls tomorrow, Kevin. By the sounds of it. Good stuff. Just double check everything. Looks good. Shama. I beat. Oh, that's okay. I'm going to repost this over at my BitChute channel, Dana Durnford, in about an hour or so. Or tomorrow morning, anyway. Yeah, thanks, Dana. Yeah, good night, everybody. Thanks for everybody. Have a great night. A great day tomorrow. I'm going to play a song that James Lucid created that we can't get enough of around here. We got a winning beat. James got lots of songs, holy smokes, that he's created. And this is one of, he's got some other songs of Calm Down Charlie too that are fantastic. But we can't even get past this song yet. We'll get to it eventually. I can guarantee you. But you have a great night and a great day tomorrow. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody on the next show, which is tomorrow if everything goes right. Don't forget you can donate. And links are in my description. They're directly to me, to my PayPal, and to my website. You can't make a mistake. It's easy to do. And now is a great time. We'll see everybody on the next show. Take care, folks.
In the Tokyo Bureau, swirling smoke and neon beams. Chicago division, fueled by heated dreams. Calm down, Charlie calls in, voice smooth as silk. Says, Dana, you're dreaming, don't cry over spilt milk. On Dana Durnford show, the chatter's turning wild, but Charlie shoots it down with that cool cat style. Unit 3's no killer, no harm to see life. He chuckles in the static, cuts through the strife. Oh, calm down, Charlie, with his nuclear charm. He says starfish are just fine, there's no alarm. His words dance on airwaves with a confident glow. Calm down, Charlie steals the whole radio show. With a snap and a grin, Charlie's voice so clear scatters the dread, dispels all the fear. Mux didn't hurt, he croons with a sigh. Science is for thinkers, not a whim or lie. Though Dana and the crowd may shout and roar, Charlie's unfazed, he's heard it all before. His swinging rationale, like a soothing song, says, hold on to logic, we gotta stay strong. Oh, calm down, Charlie, with his nuclear charm. He says starfish are just fine, there's no alarm. His words dance on airwaves with a confident glow. Calm down, Charlie steals the whole radio show.